And so I just grew up with this tenacity and this hunger. And my parents would tell you, like, entrepreneurship was in my DNA. I think for anyone getting into entrepreneurship, they got to know that, like, it's hard.
Yeah.
And if they have to embrace that, because when you embrace the fact that it's hard, it's no longer hard. It is what it is.
It is what you do to get the results and desired outcomes, right?
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring you the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, I have a fun one today. His name is Michael Browning, and I don't know if you know who he is, but you will after this conversation we're about to have, but you might know some of his companies. He's the CEO and founder of Unleash Brands, which he launched in 2021 to fill a market gap for trusted kids activities, and includes popular franchises like Urban Air Adventure Park, where they make you wear those sticky socks, right? That's part of the game. We'll get to that in a little bit. Snapology, Premier Martial Arts, Little Gym, Class 101, Sullivan Learning, XP League, to name a few. This guy's been at the entrepreneurial game for a very long time. He has a lot to share. Michael Browning, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
And if anybody wants to read all of his accolades, I'm kind of done reading the accolades. If someone
Uh,
wants to read the accolades, they could check it out. This guy, I mean, if I tell you that he's built this stuff, this guy's done enough. And well, he's not done enough, because I know there's always more with an entrepreneur, right?
Amen to that.
Always be building. Well, Michael, as I always like to, not always. It's kind of a more recent thing. I'm interested in where people come from. I'm interested how they got there. And my first question recently is really around, understand, what did your parents do for a living?
So my dad was actually an entrepreneur. He was a home builder for most of my
Mm,
life growing up as a child. But before that, he was a dairy farmer. He
mm,
also ran laundromats. So I grew up in a household where I watched my dad grind and hustle. He taught me about money. I remember him having conversations with me like, "Do you know what it costs
mm.
just to wake up every day, have the lights on, HVAC, have breakfast?" And so I just grew up with this tenacity and this hunger. And my parents would tell you, like, I, entrepreneurship was in my DNA. And I had my sisters making beaded bracelets that then I
Mm.
sold door to door, and then my dad and I collected and sold baseball cards, and went to these like conferences. And then in high school, I built websites, and so I've always just been hustling it. I love it.
It's interesting. You said my buzzword, which is tenacity. There's really two key attributes that I always say, make someone successful in business or entrepreneurship. It really is tenacity and curiosity, because that's where it stems from. You're curious for the whys, and the tenacity is the hows, how you get there, and how you figure it out. And it's funny you mentioned the bracelets. I think the bracelets are kind of like a rite of passage. I think my daughter, I mean, right? Like, it's kind of timeless.
Yep.
Maybe the execution of them, if it's like a lanyard or a beaded product, a beaded, material, it always kind of changes, but there's always a craft. I mean, that kind of goes back to, like, caveman times, I bet.
Oh, totally. It's just the only difference between the way we were doing it then and like how the kids are doing it now is we were taking cash, right? And they're using digital currency, Venmo now.
Mm, yeah, exactly. So before you built let's rewind for a little bit. Before you built this collective of companies, where did it all start?
Yeah, for me, and we were talking about this a little bit before the podcast got started. Like, it's always been about understanding the customer and the data behind that. And so I actually thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and I went to college
Right.
at TCU, and I learned about data through the political science track. And what
Hmm.
really it dawned on me is I was through this analysis able to really understand how to quantify consumer behavior. And so for me, it's always been about understanding quantitatively and qualitatively the customer. So I'm really a data nerd at heart,
Hmm.
that uses that data to make little tweaks.
Yeah, but that's kind of like a distinct superpower, because a lot of entrepreneurs are either visionaries, as far as like we have this like high level vision, or their product, and they're focused on delivering a product, whether it be a physical product or a SaaS product or some kind of tech product. But when you start with the data, that informs the decisions. So what was that first company? What was the first one?
Yeah, so my first company that I sold out of college was actually a data and analytics company, and this was before data was really big. And so we would say like, hey, who are the readers of Jack Canfield's Chicken Soup for the Soul book? And then when he
Hmm.
came out with The
I remember
Secret,
that.
we profiled the readers and said, readers who like Chicken Soup for the Soul would like The Secret. Now, how do we expand into the markets where those consumers exist using distribution channels like Walmart, Sam's Club? Then I got into medical and was using data
Mm.
to say, if you're going to open a hospital in this market, you should have these types of doctors on staff because here is the consumer demographics out there. You don't need, a bunch of orthopedic surgeons. If you have an older population, you need more cardiologists. And so did that. And then in my
Almost common
travels,
sense, but without
yeah,
the data, you can't back it up. But it turns a hypothesis into a fact.
I always say data is there to validate your gut. Like most
Hmm.
entrepreneurs have really
Right.
good guts, but like the bank wants hard data, right? People, your investors want hard data. So it's a great marriage between gut and data.
Uh, when did kids come along?
So for me, the kids came along. I was in my late 20s, but I always have a kid on some weird milestone in my business journey. So,
Ooh,
um, in my first kid came when I opened the first trampoline park, Urban Air trampoline park at the time. My wife had the baby for our first child then back in 2011.
all right, so let's talk about Urban Air for a minute there. Keep me straight on this one. Did you develop the brand and the first store and the first product, or was that part of a franchise before you took it over?
I did. I always say I didn't invent the trampoline park. I was the sixth trampoline park in the country at the time. But what I did invent is the adventure park. And we started out just as a family-owned business, man. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't, the best entrepreneurs, they do what they love, they get paid to do it, and then they just
Hmm.
keep growing it until you look up one day and be like, man, I can't believe we're here.
I can't believe we're here, and that's kind of the accomplishment of it too. And it's interesting, like the trampoline park. I got to imagine. Let's have a little fun with this one. It's probably a good thing you weren't the first one, because I can only imagine the liability and the kinks, right? Because the first trampoline park, they probably were like, all right, we haven't decided yet if it's socks or no socks. We haven't figured out, what's going to work here. Should we use sticky socks? Liability, and then they kind of work through the kinks now where listen, things happen. And I know I'm not trying to bait you into saying anything legally here, but like I've seen some headbangers going on in that Adventureland park, right? My little guy's been knocked around, but you're signing a waiver and you're getting away with it, but that's part of it, right? This is an adventure park, right? Like it's not going to be bubble wrapped, hands off kind of thing. The kids are having fun, but you guys certainly do your best to make it a safe environment. But kind of going back to what I was saying before, you were the sixth one in the country. What did you learn when launching yours from those other five? What were some of those things you're like, I like these, this needs improvement, and here could be a competitive advantage?
Yeah, I think for us, the tipping point to our success was really understanding that we had two audiences. The customer was really mom and dad, and the kids were the user. And so
Great point.
when we quickly realized, like, hey, our customers want to come to us on Monday banking holidays when it's hot outside and the kids are out of school. And
Hmm.
we want to be the place where not only does the kid have an amazing party, but mom gets to have white glove service. She can enjoy it too. And then we said, hey, for the kids, we're not going to chase fads and trends. We're going to stay true to who we are, and our focus is going to be the kid really that's like 12 and under, and we're not
Hmm.
going to chase what's new for the teens and the tweens. Um, and so that was really an unlock for us. Mom is our customer, mom and dad, and kids are the users. That was huge.
Well, let's unpack both of those segments for a little bit there. The kids one is interesting too. So you're saying we're going to focus on these kind of like 10, 11, 12 year olds. That's our demographic. We're not going to follow them, along there for the trends. And what do you mean by the trends? Like if there's a new kind of cool thing, you're not going to just like keep updating. I mean, yes, you want to stay fresh and relevant with the equipment and kind of the vibe and everything. But what do you mean by trends?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So what we're saying is we want to go into markets where the, the certain kids will age out and new kids will be born and age in. And so we want to really be that spot where it's like 6 to 12 year olds is our market. So as the kids become tweens, they start getting phones and they start wanting to do different things in that
Other
six to
things.
12 year old market. We're like, that's fine. You're aging out. We've done our research. There's going to be more kids that are here. We're always looking at women in childbearing years, how many families are there.
Hmm.
And so we just want to stay true to who our user is, which is the 6 to 12 year old kid. you're absolutely right. We're always going to have the latest, greatest, and the best active adventure attractions. So we're always innovating, and we're launching new attractions this fall across the country. But
Cool.
yeah, it is really just being true to who you are. Roland Hansen, who was the chief marketing officer globally for Microsoft, was a mentor of mine. He said, "You can't be everything to everyone.
Nope.
Know your customer, know your user, and focus there." And that's what we did in the beginning.
If you try to be everything to everybody, you're going to be nothing to nobody.
Mhm.
And I kind of embrace that one too there. And I appreciate it. What was one of those first kind of mistakes you made with the first? You might be a business mistake, a logistics, the park itself
Yeah. Oh
that
gosh,
you learned from. You're like,
yeah,
where do I begin?
where to begin? I think like that's the beautiful thing about franchising is for us, we've made so many mistakes through the years that we've been able to document those mistakes and help other people have success without making the same mistakes along the way. So for me, I think, gosh, I think biggest mistake,
Right,
gosh,
one of those
yeah,
tough lessons learned the hard way. Maybe it was a financial mistake,
yeah.
accounting, maybe logistics, maybe you assumed something that just didn't happen.
Yeah, I would say I made a couple bad real estate decisions in the early days because I I was too emotional about the the piece of real estate, and that those emotions caused me
Hmm.
to pick a bad site, do a bad deal. And so now I really try to take the emotion out of it, again, and always revert back to that data. I think that's so important, because we take it personal as entrepreneurs, and
Of
so we can
course
get
we do.
emotional sometimes.
Yeah, but now, I mean, going back to your strong suit, which is data too. Let's talk a little bit. I'm curious because real estate's in my family's blood. Site selection. Site selection is important,
Hmm.
right? Demographic data, and then obviously the physical property, and you have certain requirements versus pre-existing, or it's going to be a build out there too. But what are some of those more like qualitative? Like what are those considerations when you really go back to now? We're focusing on the second demographic, which is the parents. Obviously, location is critical. Ease. Down in Florida, they're right off the parkway. Some of them, like that,
Yep.
makes it kind of easy. But what
Yep.
are some of those considerations that it may not be so obvious? Some like
Yeah.
secret
So
sauce.
we say we don't have to be on the corner of Main and Main, but we
Mm.
do need to be at the intersection where families do life, right? And so, because yes, people will drive longer distances for a special event like a birthday, but
Hmm.
in our business, the success formula is repeatability. And so we need customers to be coming multiple times throughout the year. And so where if you're at the intersection of where they do life, then they perceive it to be more convenient, and
Mm.
convenient equates to repeatability. So that's one of them, is like well lit parking lots, right? You
Not in like
can't
some dingy
quantify that with
industrial
data.
area,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, these we steward family's most important asset, which is the kids. I go kids, cars, and homes. Like those are the top three. And so there's just some things we really pay attention to. Like we've never done a mall deal where we're inside the mall, because we know that parents are typically carrying a lot of stuff into birthday parties, and they don't want to walk 100 yards down a corridor to get in. So we always need exterior access, just things like that.
But I mean, but that's a thoughtful consideration. Like I see a lot. I mean, listen, I have a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old. I've been in the birthday party circuit for over a decade, man. Right? Like I get it, but I notice those things as a marketer. I notice those things as a parent too. How easy is like one of the things I love at one of the places is they take the presents right away. They
Hmm.
take the presents right when you walk in. I hate carrying a present around, or they put it down on the table and then there's other things going on. They have a kid's name on it. They put it down and then they move them away. They move them into the next party room. Always being mindful of the logistics, being mindful of the flow. And that comes down to understanding your audience and understanding the parent. The other piece too is, there's just two sets. Let's talk about parents, right? There's parents that come in for just general play, and then there's parents for birthday parties. How do you kind of identify and treat each group uniquely?
Yeah, so going back to data, we actually quantify those two groups. So we would call the parent who's just coming in on the banking
Mhm.
holiday or just on the weekends to play your walk-in guest, and then you have your event guest, and they are very two distinct groups. And so we track each of those groups statistically based on their net promoter score. So we're always saying, hey,
Mhm.
Adam, right after about a few hours after you leave the park, we're going to ask you like, how would you rate us on a scale of 1 to 10 to friends and family, and get that net promoter score. And our data scientists study like if the check-in time is between X and Y, Adam's going to give me 56% higher net promoter score, but we know when it drops. Or if there's trash, or if
Mm.
we have more trash cans every so many feet, that's a Disney thing, right? We know that that's very important because cleanliness equates to safety in the perception of the guest. If you can't even pick up your trash, then how are you maintaining your attractions and keeping them safe?
There's nothing worse as a parent than a disgusting kids' party place. I've been to some where I'm like, how is the health department not shutting this down? These are like warehouses where they just load in inflatables and they let the
Mhm.
kids just run havoc. I do not like those. I've been to your establishments. They are well run and they're clean. I'm not just saying that because you're on the show. I'm saying that because I took notice. I also noticed a couple of other things: ample benches along the sides, ample seating area. Parents want to sit down. We're tired. Those kids are running around. That's our moment to breathe. Yes, we're paying attention to them,
Yep.
but ensuring that there's adequate seating and it's like wide staircases, there's open areas. These are all considerations. So as you start to scale, right? This is getting exciting now. We're building and planning it too. Um, how did you keep like your not just your, I don't want to say your ego in check, but how did you keep your business head on a swivel and keep
You know,
everything kind of moving in the right direction?
Yeah, so they're really focusing on the data. Like we always say, look, like we're a for-profit company, and where there's profits, there can be philanthropy. So if we want to make an
Mm-hmm.
impact, we got to make some money. And so really knowing what the financial metrics are that we need to track that are going to allow us to grow, allow us to scale. That's one. Always being in tune with the customer. Are we meeting their expectation? Are we providing value? Are we affordable? Are they coming back because of those things? When you we always say like we want to inspect what we expect, and so we're always looking at that. And then I'm always staying in the field, and just on the floor. I love being in the floor of our businesses, interacting with customers, almost like the secret shopper, because
Mm.
as you scale, as you
Undercover
get
boss, right? You go in there,
yeah,
you put like a baseball hat on, like
yeah,
t-shirt, kind of acting like a dad that you are, right? Like I am a dad. I'm
totally,
just gonna act like one
yeah, just take my
and bring the
kids.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Gee,
so, you never want to get so big where you're out of touch with the real consumer who
no
cares about the
reality,
price of eggs today, the real mom who, is trying to just do something with their kids to wear them out. Like Nirvana for us
right?
is she drives a Honda Odyssey minivan. She
Right.
comes up on a Monday banking holiday with 2.23 kids. She buys those tickets, gets those socks, feeds them, and they pass out on the back on the way home. That's
Yep.
winning. That's winning for us, baby.
You want to knock the kids out. That's that. Right. That's the whole thing. When your kids go, do they expect like the VIP treatment, or you're like, no, you're a regular kid just like everyone else here?
Yeah,
Let's be
it's
real here. They're not
yeah,
listening to the podcast. Your kids aren't tuning in. They're
yeah.
not going to hear this.
We're
Right.
trying to always keep our kids humble, right? And help them understand like this didn't happen overnight, and
No.
like they need to teach them how to hustle and grind. So for example, my daughter and I, we just went on a day trip to China last week
A
to go
day trip.
test a day trip. We flew out on Wednesday, landed Thursday at 3 p.m., spent one day in the factory, and flew home Saturday.
Wow.
And I said,
I
"Listen,
mean, I
honey."
guess that's an Asian day trip. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a day
Yeah.
trip, and I said, so 27 hours on a plane for 24 hours on the ground, and I said, look, we're gonna go test out some attractions, and you're gonna see what it takes from a
Mm.
physicality perspective to hustle and grind globally.
Yeah, people don't like travel knocks. I mean, I just went to Chicago for a couple of days and I'm still kind of feeling it, which is a 2 hour flight, but you get out there and you get, so give us a little alpha. What were you trying out there?
So
What are
we've
they what are
got
they building in China? What are they doing over there?
yeah,
They're always
yeah.
kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to cool stuff.
So we have a few different things coming this fall. We have a dry slide technology, that
It sounds
we
painful.
well, you're on a ride vehicle, so
Yeah.
it's pretty sweet. So we've got a set of attractions that are coming out this fall, and so I personally go and look at these things. We test
Mm.
them. I brought my 9-year-old daughter so she
Yeah.
could test them, give me feedback, before we bring them over and start installing them. And so it was a great trip, a core memory for my daughter for sure.
I love to take your kid to work at our Urban Air Adventure Park, but let's dig into that a little bit, like how we teach our kids. And I truly believe, it's kind of a very deep kind of thought. Like, when I think about my legacy, obviously I want to leave this place a better earth than I found it. And I do that through my kids. My kids are already better than me. They're already going to be better than me. And I want to enable them. I want to give them everything, but I also want to give them the opportunity. I want to give them the room to fail. Will there be a safety net? Sometimes there will be. Sometimes there won't be. I mean, yes, Urban Air Adventure Park, there always is a safety net. But in life, there's not always safety nets. but I want to model success. How do you and your family how do you model success with children, these grade school children, middle school, high school kids, in a way that they could see their parents really doing things the right way?
Yeah, I think first you gotta lead by example. Like, yeah, anytime I'm in an urban air or any of our venues and they're with us, I make a point. I do it anyways when they're not there, but always make sure they see me picking up trash, taking a guest tray, helping a kid, helping a customer. Like, you're just never too big, too
Mm,
successful to pick up a piece of trash or to help someone in need. We don't point someone to the bathroom, we walk them and help them, like, and just seeing them go like, hey, he still gets his hands dirty. That's why I took my 9-year-old to China. It's like, listen, like, could I have sent someone and they could have sent me videos? Yeah, but like, this is important. And so I'm gonna go do this. And then talking to them, having
mm,
conversations, not in the heat of the moment when they make a mistake, and just getting on them, but really processing with them to say, could there have been a better choice? And also admitting when I fail, because I do fail quite frequently and make mistakes, and
we all
just say,
fail.
you know what, like, I missed the mark, but like, I'm your dad, and I think that it's so important to for kids to see, like, you're gonna make mistakes, just own it,
Own
fix
it.
it, get on with
Accountability.
it. Yeah.
Why do you think there's such an I mean, I'm kind of going on my soapbox here, but I feel there's a big accountability, loss of accountability, lack of accountability in society right now. It's very easy to like, I mean, I don't want to go on a rant here. I mean, I think we look at our politicians, we look at our athletes, our celebrities. Now, some of them are gold standards and take accountability for their actions, and others make it look like it's no problem at all to do one thing, say another, and there's no accountability there. Do you think that's the issue? How do we get back to real accountability?
Yeah, I think it's one of these things where because of this culture of, I can customize my Amazon shopping cart, I can customize what I watch on Netflix, I can customize people, it almost parlays into like, well, I can customize the way I live. My values are different than your values, and all of a sudden, like, everybody, as long as you're doing you, then everybody
Mm,
has to accept you. And I just think that at Unleash Brands, it's why, we're stewarding today's kids who are tomorrow's leaders, and we want to instill those values of tenacity, grit, hustle,
love that.
loving someone that doesn't look and sound like you, but also respecting authority. Like, everyone
Right.
is accountable. There is authority. We're going to respect our teachers and respect our politicians. You may disagree with their views, but they're still in a position of authority, and we're going to respect that position.
Hey, everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Well said. So let's talk about expansion, and now you move into franchising. How do you ensure like brand standards? How do you ensure that they're going to hold up to those values and guidelines? And now, how many urban airs do you have?
So we have over 200 urban airs,
Wow.
2,200 franchise locations across the
Hmm.
7 brands. So it all comes back to accountability and measuring what matters. So you
Right.
have to set your brand standards that are achievable and measurable, and then you have to use any type of data that you can get on a monthly basis. But then qualitatively, you do compliance audits, you do
Hmm.
mystery shopping, and then you get with them and you say, here's what we're seeing. And it's not just like with kids. It's not just saying you're not doing a good job. It's, here is what we can improve on, opportunity areas, and here's how you do it. So it's all about coaching and leading them through getting better, in franchising. Is very applicable to parenting.
What would have? I mean, yes, there's success metrics, but how do you gauge who earns a franchise across any of your brands,
Yeah,
right? There has to be some cautions there. What is the auditing process? Because at the end of the day, it's your brands, it's your overarching reputation.
absolutely. So our franchise development department has a very rigorous 8-step process that people have to go through in order to be awarded a franchise. We're not selling anything. we're
Right.
awarding franchises to people who we believe have the integrity, have the financial
Hmm.
qualifications, have the operational experience, and you got to have our core values and a love for kids. Like you can make money a lot of different places, but for us, because we're stewarding the next generation, we want to make sure that the people who are owning and operating these brands, they got to love kids, right? We believe every kid has a name. Every name is writing a story, and the story is about a kid on a journey trying to reach their destiny, and every destiny has to matter to the people that operate our brands.
Yeah, and there's a lot of responsibility. I mean, you have a bunch of different franchises, right? Most of them are kid based one way or another here too, and there's a responsibility that comes with that from an education standpoint, from a security standpoint, and I can only imagine some of the crazy stories that and things that you have to deal with there. But from a uh, liability must be tough, right? You're not going to be 100% all the time, and things are going to happen. Accidents are going to happen. God forbid, worse things kind of happen there. How do you? How does your what's your crisis kind of management approach? Because shit's
So
going to happen, right? Like things are going to happen. Like it's life. There's X factors. There's things out of control. You're always going to do the best with security and safety in this day and age to the best of your ability
yeah, I
and
think
your
you're
company's ability.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's all about mitigation on the front end of like how do you ensure things are safe? How do you create environments that are physically safe but also emotionally safe for the guests, so there's no bullying? Or how do you ensure that the right parent is picking up the right kid? So there's all of these things out there, and so it all starts with putting processes and
Mhm.
programs in place on the front end, and then if something does happen, it's how do you handle it in the moment. So first you're
Mhm.
triaging and solving the situation in the moment, but then it's also about the follow-up and how you interact with that guest, how you take care of them, how you let them know that you do care. Those
Right.
types of things are very important in business because what's something that seemed small could spiral into something that's large if you don't handle it from a communications perspective with the guest and the community.
Well, it sounds like you guys know what you're doing there, and I've had a lot of conversations with folks that work in crisis management, and they talk about big events or anything. It's always like, let's have run throughs, let's do worst case scenarios, let's be ready. God forbid these things happen. Let's have a game plan so we're proactive and not reactive. So I appreciate your perspective on that. Let's talk a little bit about team building. This show is based corely on, at its core, it's on the hiring process and careers. What are some of those kind of key values and kind of secret sauce to the way you guys build teams?
Oh man, like the first thing I always tell people is like culture is not a ping pong table, culture is
No.
not a beer keg. Um, and so what we do is we first set our core values. And we say we hire and fire by these core values. And just because you got in, if for some reason you're not living by them,
Yeah.
you're not going to be here very long. So we hire fast and we fire fast around these core values. And our core values, one being authentic. So you ask about
Hmm.
how do you stay humble? Look, we want to be humble yet confident in our vision and mission, and it's okay to stand out in a room, but you want to be humbly confident. We talk about being synergistic, about being good communicators, about being curious. That's a core value for ours. We
Hmm.
seek to understand our customers, our franchisees, and the world around us so that we can deliver the best experience. Courageous, we take smart risks. We're open to failure. We
Smart
admit when
risk.
we're wrong. We know it's going to be hard. We're innovative. We're always looking to try new things. We believe innovation creates disruption, and disruption separates the winners from the losers. And then gritty is a core value. Frugal is a core value. I grew
Frugal.
up, yeah, like
Yeah.
we're not
Make it
saying
work.
cheap. Yeah, we're not saying cheap. We're
There's a
saying
difference between
frugal.
cheap and frugal, right?
Yep.
There's times that I'm cheap and there's times that I'm frugal.
Look, I hired a very talented CIO about 5 years ago, and very talented. But he came from a Fortune 500 company, and he came here and he would come to me and be, "Oh, I've got this great tech. I've got this great thing. It's only going to be $1,000 a month to a franchisee." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Man, $1,000 a month to a franchisee is a lot of money."
A
And
month.
that was
Yeah.
on me, right? Because I hired the wrong person. He came from a corporately owned background where a thousand
Right.
bucks a month isn't a
It's,
big deal.
no, it's a
So it just
rounding
didn't
error,
work.
right?
Just didn't work. And then finally, fun. We find joy in every situation. We can find joy anywhere. And so, even in a tough macro environment like today with inflation and different things we're dealing with, we have fun. And when we have fun, it trickles down to our staff and our franchisees who help the guests have fun. And so, those core
I like that.
values are what we live and die by. and
Who
we've held on strong to them through thick and thin.
who who inspires you from like that kind of mentorship business perspective?
I've had some great mentors. One of them, Ken May, he was the CEO of Top Golf, and he really took
Top
Top
golf,
Golf. Yeah,
awesome,
yeah,
yay,
great guy. He came from FedEx prior to that. I already mentioned earlier Roland Hansen. He was from Microsoft. I've had some Chris Tonko, the COO of 7-Eleven, has taught me so much. So I always say I'm looking for people who have seen the movie and have the T-shirt. Like I want that them to just
I
be.
might have to borrow that expression, Mike.
I love it. Do it. I'm
Uh,
always looking for people like, man, I've seen this movie before, man, and like wisdom is learning from the mistake of others. And so,
oh yeah.
I try to I always try to have a mentor. I always try to have someone who's my encourager and someone who I can mentee, because until you really have a mentee as well, like you just it's not as fulfilling always taking from others.
I know I've been focusing a lot on urban air just because I'm that's out of your brand list. That's the one I embrace. My kids do other things. Then they're not within the other portfolio there, but they love urban air. So
Yeah.
it's exciting to talk about urban air. But we're talking about the other franchises. There. What's the next general area? We don't need to give names here that you're kind of looking at from a trend perspective. What's next on the kid horizon? I mean, I saw the coding franchises come up.
Hmm.
The Como, what's it? The education one,
Yep.
a bunch of cool stuff there. What's kind of next there? Because I've seen a couple of things in my neighborhood. I live in affluent Long Island here. There's some things. One of them that I really like is this rookies thing, which
Mm.
is a kid's sports thing. I was like,
Yep.
I did that party and I
Yep.
really enjoyed it with my kid. It was like a scaled down gym version, 7 to maybe 11 years old. Probably gets a little too small for like older than that. But I was like, this is a cool one. And it didn't have a big real estate footprint either.
Yep.
What's that next one that you're kind of looking at from a
So we have
categories perspective?
Yeah, so what our consumers are telling us. So we have over 25 million consumers that flow through our franchises on
It's
an
a lot
annual
of data.
basis. Yeah, it's a lot of data, and both quantitative and qualitatively, consumers are saying we want unleashed brands to help us teach our kids to swim. That's a life-saving skill, so we're there. But also, we need to bring in traditional sports. We have the world's largest esports company for kids, which is amazing, and we're hosting an esports tournament this weekend in Orlando. But
Awesome.
also outside of that, fine arts,
Hmm.
music, theater, those type cooking is like,
Cooking was the thing in my head right now I was going to talk about. Yeah.
yeah,
Kids
yeah,
cooking, they love it.
they love it, and we need to teach them. A lot of these. I wouldn't call cooking necessarily a trade. Maybe we could, but these trades, cooking, we need to help kids learn these things because I think there's a tremendous opportunity for kids who have a love for these type of things. My 9-year-old loves to cook. We could put her in cooking camp this summer.
My kids absolutely, absolutely love it. Even last night, twofold. One, we were watching Kids Baking Champion with my 6-year-old, and he made a point because he had to go to sleep before it was over. And he's like, "You better tell me who won that. You better tell me who won that." And he's gonna be mad that he's never gonna listen to this, but I didn't watch. But I
Oh,
remembered the kid who made the fake salmon looking sushi out of like something else. And I'm like,
mhm.
"Remember the kid that made the sushi and the tacos?" He went, and he was like, "Thanks, Dad. Thanks for telling me that." I'm like, "All right." Sometimes a little white lie to, not piss the kid off there. Um, what's keeping you up at night, Michael? Listen, you have a lot on your plate, and obviously you have a big team around you, and you've hired well, and you've built a support structure. But you're at the top of the pyramid, man, and heavy is a crown. What keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I always tell people. I said, be careful what you wish for. It can be lonely at the top.
Mm,
And so right now for me, my heart is really on the consumer. It's tough out there for them right now, with inflation and everything that they've been dealing with, over the last 3 years. So we're
yeah,
we're really focused on making sure that we bring the highest quality experience we can at a very affordable price for the consumer because they're feeling it, and
we are
and
feeling it.
consumers are trading down, and we want to make sure that we bring them that value.
And that's so true too. You think about it. And one of my pet peeves when I go to like similar places in the category is the amusement section, right? The games and everything, and you're getting a card with points and value, and all of a sudden you spend $50 on a card, and it's gone in 2 seconds because some of the games are like 30 points.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that kind of upsets me. I'm just kind of sharing. Is that something you hear about and try to like understand from a consumer standpoint? Like, how do we make it easier to understand where your admission and your fees are going?
Yeah, it is something we absolutely take a look at. I firmly believe, I preach it all the time.
I mean, that's
Our
real consumer feedback. I didn't mean to cut it. That's
Yeah,
like straight
no,
from me as a parent to you. Yeah.
and as a parent, I feel the
Yeah.
same way. Like, and so we have to understand that the cost of our experience is not just the tickets. It's the ticket, the sock, the food and beverage that you're going to end
Mhm.
up buying while you're there, any merch that you buy while you're there. That's the holistic experience. And so at the end of the month, when the consumers get their credit card statements and they look at how much they spent at Urban Air, they're going to say, was this large number worth
Worth
what
it.
we got? And so we don't like to nickel and dime the consumer to death. So that's why it's one price, play all day, wear yourself out, right? That's very important for us. But we're continuing to study the consumer. So right now we're doing a Van Westendorp study with the
Mm.
consumers to help us understand qualitatively, like, where do they feel like the right price point is for a child ticket, for an adult ticket by DMA. And that
Mhm.
data is supposed to come back into July, and then we couple that
Interesting.
with price elasticity tests that we run to see, when we lower price or raise price, how does that affect attendance in our parks. So when you bring those two things together, you can triangulate a pretty good price point that brings value to the consumer.
And there's the marketing masterclass of the day, folks. So what advice, you're in a position now where you've, really been there, done that, obviously still continuing to grow and build, but you've had your battles, you've have your accomplishments, you have your failures. But there's a lot of these kids that, are bypassing traditional education and going right into entrepreneurship for better or for worse. And I applaud all of them for trying. But where do you stand on like, hey, jumping right into entrepreneurship is cool, or you know what, you should work for another company first and get some formal background in education. Where do you kind of land on that?
I think I've seen it done both ways. And when I study a lot of the entrepreneurs that made it big, a lot of them were older in life and they've got a lot
Mm,
of life wisdom and things. So I think it could be accomplished either way. I think, though, no matter when you start, like we always say, you don't have to be old to be great. You can do great things today, right? So
I like that. It's
I'm
true.
very big on that, right? With kids, especially with stewarding a lot of kids. Like, hey, man, do something great today. Um, but I think for anyone getting into entrepreneurship, they got to know that, like, it's hard,
Yeah,
and if they have to embrace that, because when you embrace the fact that it's hard, it's no longer hard. It is what it is.
it is what you do to get the results and desired outcomes, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think people just have to understand, like, when the people, what's the testament to your success? Like, look, I'm never the smartest guy in the room. I go, but it's very hard to find someone who will outwork me. And
Mm-hmm.
and no matter how many times I get knocked down, I get back up and I don't quit. And I treat people
That's
right. I love my customers, and just get up every day and love what you do.
and that is how Michael Browning decodes success, folks. That's exactly how you do it. Michael, let's bring it home here. What's the single greatest piece of advice that you've received that you take action on every day?
I think for me, it's to, if you're not failing, you're not trying. So many people are scared to fail. And so what I say, as long as I'm not betting the farm on any one idea and I'm making little trajectory tweaks through my tests, then I can fail. And in any good
Mm.
A/B test, something wins and something fails. But the fact that you're A/B testing means that you're moving the ball down the field and you're innovating. So always be failing.
AB, is that ABF? I mean, are we even saying that these days? We just always be failing, right? It's kind of like I don't know if that's gonna make a T-shirt, Michael, but we're gonna go with it. So let's bring it home here, and I do appreciate, before we get on, that you've checked out some other shows, and if you have, there's one question I always finish with because it's my guiding principle, and I think that's really a testament to who we are and what motivates us in life and how we got there and how we do everything and how we do anything is absolutely how we do everything. So, Michael, when you look back on your life, times weren't always easy, and they're probably not easy right now, just different kind of context and perspective. But you always found a way to pull yourself up. You always found a way to harness that inner tenacity. Michael Browning, what is your compass? What is your beacon? What is your North Star?
Yeah, I think I want to, like, I think we talked about it. Like, if there's a couple things I want people to say, like, he brought joy to our family. He created places that brought joy. Like, a smile is so important to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I always tell my team, every person that is in our venues has a little talk bubble over their head, and they're going through something. They're being bullied at school, or their parents are fighting. They're trying to escape something. And for that little amount of time, we get to write into the page of their story, and let's make that a positive page. And so if I can just little bits at a time, just put positivity into people's life through our experiences that help them learn, play, and grow, I'm a winner.
I love it, man. This has been a fun chat. We could probably keep it going for a long time, but we have to call it a day here. Michael, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I want everyone to check out unleashedbrands.com, not Unleashed Brands, unleashedbrands.com. Check out all the amazing franchises, locations near you. Really, him and his team have created incredible places for children to learn, children to grow, children to have a good time, and for parents to feel safe and comfortable. And I appreciate, as a parent, for what you and the team have created. Anywhere else folks could find you? Where can they connect?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, and yeah, just online, and I always answer every message on LinkedIn from customers. I love interacting with them. They're the lifeblood of everything that we do. It's why we get up every day. So thanks
Good
for having
stuff.
me on.
And thank you for making the time to do that, right? And I think that leaders that keep their ear to the ground and stay real and keep it real. And yes, it takes time. Yes, you could outsource that to your team or an assistant, but that keeps you in tune with the people, and it gives you just a stronger connection to your customers. So, Michael, I want to thank you so much. And everyone listening, thank you. Thank you for spending time with Michael Browning Jr. Sorry, Michael Browning Jr. Shout out to Michael Browning Sr. Right?
He's a good man.
For creating a great son over here. And everyone listening, if this show resonated, please leave a review, rating. It goes a long way. Sharing means caring. We appreciate you. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on all the social media channels. YouTube at The Podcast. Instagram at NHP Talent. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search The Podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.